Hello everybody and welcome to the Tuesday edition of Video Clips. And as usual, I'll start with some announcements. The first thing is the Food Over Medicine coaching program starts tonight. And believe it or not, if you're watching this before 9 o'clock when it starts, you can still get in. So we're very good at last minute here at Wellness Form Health. Not that we want to advertise that, because we really do like when people register for things early, but if you decide that you'd like to do it and maybe entertain the idea of opening a Food Over Medicine chapter, please let us know. Second thing, I started teaching the autoimmune class yesterday, so if you still want to do this, you can listen to the recording of last night's class and then join us for the next 11 weeks while I teach the autoimmune class. Lots to talk about. I promise you will learn things about autoimmune diseases that you don't know right now. And then next weekend, September 21st through 23rd, we're going to be filming some lectures with Dr. Peter Breggin. If you are interested in spending a weekend with probably one of the most talented therapists and ethical psychiatrists on the planet, never prescribes drugs as part of therapy, this is your chance to do it. In Columbus, Ohio, if you want information on that, let us know. And then for those of you who live in Columbus, you're so lucky because on Thursday night, next week, he's going to make an appearance at our free dinner, which is quickly filling up. So if you have any ideas about coming to that dinner and meeting Dr. Breggin, because we're going to do the Q&A together, you definitely want to let us know about that right now. And then last but not least, don't forget, our conference is coming up November 9 through 11. Our speakers include Peter Breggin, will be back, Eileen Kopsaftis, who is our physical therapy guru, Dr. Anthony Lim, who's with True North and the McDougall program in California, and special guest Cheryl Atkinson. I'm going to talk about her a little bit more next week when I don't have so many other things to talk about, but this is a really unique opportunity, and we're actually going to give you a gift certificate toward programs that is worth more than the ticket price you pay. And your ticket price includes meals. Now, it doesn't get much better than that. So, Pam Popper at msn.com. If you want to talk about careers, Pam Popper at msn.com. Any of these things that I'm talking about, same email address. All right? Now, want to go to commentary next. Commentary on your commentary. So some of you wrote to me, and I posted some comments. Once again, I don't post the capital letters and the bad language, so don't do that. But anyway, this has to do with Walter Kempner. And some of you, first of all, were just flabbergasted that I had negative things to say about Walter Kempner because, and you defended Kempner by saying, well, Dr. So-and-so thinks he's great. Well, if your only response to what I have to say about Walter Kempner is somebody else says something else, that's he said, she said. The only way you get out of that is to look at evidence. I promise you, if you look at evidence concerning Walter Kempner, I think he was well-intentioned, but he really, really did not do very well in terms of contributing to research. So his studies showed, and another of you said, his studies showed what not to eat. Actually, what Kempner was doing at Duke University was he was starving people. His diet was 1,000 calories a day, not sustainable by any human who left Duke. And in fact, it was a revolving door type of thing because nobody could go home. I knew people in Columbus who did it. They called it fat camp. They would go down there and get lean for somebody's wedding, come back home, eat normally, balloon back up, and go back down the next time somebody got married. This is not a health program. This is a fat camp. And it was a cash cow at Duke because a lot of people went there, including celebrities like Shelley Winters. But he actually didn't really contribute. There's no information you can take out of a 1,000 calorie a day diet and apply to the general population. Whatever claims he made about what happened there had nothing to do with real life humans in their own houses like you and me who are not in that confined environment starving to death, all right? So, and the other thing too that I want to remind you, when doctors say all kinds of things, people say, how can a doctor, say that this is a good or a bad idea? Well, I'm going to tell you a story that I think will help you understand how vulnerable doctors are to picking up bad things, all right? So, this happened about, 70, 80 years ago. This guy by the name of Horace Fletcher came up with a program he called Fletcherism. All right, wasn't a doctor, not a dietitian, knew nothing about nutrition, but he taught people Fletcherism. And what Fletcherism was, I can hardly say this with a straight face. It was chewing your food between 100 and 700 times in order to totally liquefy it. He even said you should chew liquids because you would extract more nutrients if you did that. The reason for doing this, by the way, was to lose weight because you couldn't really eat very much food if you were chewing the food 700 times. And then he also had a lot of financial calculations, like a family of 4 could furnish an entire household within just 6 months on the money that they would save by Fletcherizing when they ate instead of eating full portions of food. Okay, so this is a crazy idea. I don't know any sane person who would promote it. But within a very short period of time, John D. Rockefeller and Franz Kafka had become a devotee of Fletcherism. And physicians were making presentations at medical conferences encouraging physicians to teach their patients how to Fletcherize, all right? Now, there are wonderful doctors, many wonderful doctors. I know a lot of them. You've met some of them through me, through the articles that I write and that sort of thing. So this is not an indictment of the medical profession. What this is an indication of how easily led some doctors are. So it's very important to check things out for yourself, all right? I always tell people when they come here, if you're just doing what I say, I try to stay away from telling people what to do, but if you're doing what I say instead of what somebody else says, you haven't changed your health status at all. You really are still susceptible to bad messages, all right? So when we get into talking about Kempner and, I say this about Kempner and somebody else says that, and gosh, I'm so confused, this is why we teach people how to look at this stuff and make decisions, all right? All right, one other thing I want to cover, and then I have a topic that I want to cover today, and that is I could not help but talk about this. I was on my way to the office today, listening to a Sirius XM news program of some type, and there's a big race for the cure, the Susan Komen Foundation in New York City. And I know this all comes from well-meaning people. They really want to help, believe me, I do believe that, all right? So this Jerry Wills is sort of like the star of the show and the person who's promoting. So they had her as a guest on this news program, whatever it was. I mean, I was just kind of channel surfing. You know how you do, you happen on something. So she's talking about how important it is. So the first thing they ask her, how was your breast cancer detected? And she said, well, it was interesting because I had had a mammogram 6 months before. It was clear. They told me I was fine. And then 6 months later, I started feeling something in my breast. I knew something wasn't right. I went to my doctor. She sent me to a specialist, and I was diagnosed with stage 3 lobular carcinoma in situ, which is fairly serious. So then she says, they talk a little bit, and she goes, now this is why women have to get mammograms. She goes, now you know how we can all be. We take care of husbands, we take care of kids, we do everything except take care of ourselves. So the message is you need to get a mammogram. And I'm stopped at a traffic light. I'm thinking, how can this be? You had a mammogram. They told you you were clean, and 6 months later, you have invasive cancer stage 3. This didn't work out so well for you. You should not tell that story if you want women to have mammograms, or at least not to thinking women who might actually process what you said and make a decision. So anyway, we are not running the race for the cure, just so you know. We do not contribute to the pink ribbon stuff and everything, and this is the reason why. It's nonsense, and it's nonsense that is really promoted by a lot of well-meaning people. I think this Jerry Willis really would like for women not to die from breast cancer. She just doesn't really understand how misguided what she's talking about really is. All right, so enough of that. Let's get on to the article I want to talk about. So, and I'm very encouraged by this, by the way. Italy's politicians are doing something incredibly radical. They're listening to Italian citizens and acting according to their wishes. I just fell off my chair when I read this. Politicians who do what they're elected to do. I mean, who knew this could actually happen on this planet? The upper house of Italy's parliament just passed a law repealing the requirement that all children be vaccinated against 12 diseases in order to be enrolled for school. The amendment passed with a vote of 140 to 110 and now will be sent to the lower house for approval. For some time, Italians have been staging protests against the law, which was passed in 2017, which would require children to have 53 doses of vaccine as a requirement for public education. The law called for parents to be fined up to $8,396 US and even allow authorities to take children away from their parents if the parents were not in compliance on this issue. Millions of angry people, millions, some of whom had vaccine-injured children, staged protests and banded together, and they made it really clear that their vote would be according to the platforms that these politicians ran on and that this was important to them. Well, as a result, two parties, they have multiple parties in Italy, made a platform, made repealing the law as part of their platform in parliamentary elections that took place this spring, and candidates called for more freedom and autonomy for families. I mean, can you imagine? You have to run on that as a platform. We're going to give freedom to people. They won in part as a result of their stand on this issue. So what I'm hoping, the reason I'm putting this out, is I'm hoping American voters are inspired by the success of the Italian people in forcing the government to actually work for the people and respond to public demands. Not only did these people, the citizens of Italy, vote into office those representatives who agreed to do what they wanted them to do, but politicians heard loud and clear that they should follow through on their promises or their duration in Parliament would be really short. Wouldn't it be nice if our politicians learned that they would be voted out of office, or they wouldn't be voted into office if they did not comply with the wishes of the voters? Well, we can do the same thing in the upcoming midterms. California, are you listening? Vote anybody out of office who voted for that mandatory vaccine program that you guys write to me about every day complaining about. I can't change it, but you can by putting different people in the legislature. And vote against anyone who promotes the idea of the nanny state and for laws in at both the state or the federal level. So those of you who love Bernie Sanders, are you listening? Take a careful listen to what this guy's talking about, because he would like to have more and more regulations at the federal level for things like this. I had a little bit of an epiphany when I was running this morning that I wanted to share with you. I think it's really ironic that so many people who are pro-choice concerning abortion have no qualms against taking away the freedom of choice from millions of American parents concerning vaccinations. Apparently, the party line is we only want choice where we say it's okay, and then every place else you don't get any choice. I have a bit of a problem with that. I think it's not so good. Now, I'm an equal opportunity critic. On the other hand, many who are pro-life support mandatory vaccinations in spite of the fact that many, if not most, vaccines contain aborted fetal tissue. So perhaps everybody who is promoting mandatory vaccines ought to take a look at their entire philosophical approach to health and life in general and decide, are you pro-choice? Because if you are, be pro-choice. Pro-choice in all matters concerning health. And if you are anti-abortion, then you should be anti-abortion in all matters, not just in those that concern the actual act of abortion. So I think people find themselves in incredibly contradictory positions without maybe thinking through the fact that they are. So I think that's enough for today. That's all for today. So remember, we're going for 25,000 subscribers, then we're going to have a drawing. So hit the subscribe button, and if you hit the little bell, we'll notify you. The system will notify you anytime we post new videos, and we do it every week. All right. So as usual, pass this on to anybody who you think might enjoy watching it, and I'll be back to you on Thursday with more news.